Hello again. And welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And it's brought to you by the good graces of Manhattan Neighborhood Network and EVT Educational Productions. And Bob, once again, we're pre-taping the Thursday before our Monday air. So we'll try to do kind of an overview and see what's breaking in the news and what might still be in the news when we actually air. But as we're taping, just before we tape, we heard and saw the fact that the Senate just delivered a rebuke to Donald J. Trump, the occupant of the White House.
Yes, they did.
Saying that, no, we don't think that this emergency on the southern border that you tried to make a national emergency is a national emergency. What was the actual vote?
It was 59 to 41 to rescind the emergency, and that obviously means that a number of Republicans crossed the aisle to vote with the Democrats who voted as a bloc.
Right.
And as we were discussing before we just went on air, that carried the vote. But if Donald Trump delivers the veto, which he has promised to deliver, which would basically put the emergency back into effect, they wouldn't have the votes to override that veto at this point.
Based on the numbers that came down in the, quote, rebuke. So right. The bottom line is enough Republicans had some fortitude to say, yeah, we don't think it's an emergency. However, when the rubber hits the road and the guy says, no, I want it, then the real vote will come up, and we'll see how many Republicans really have the courage of their convictions.
I'm kind of wondering, with this Republican vote, the ones that did cross the aisle, I wonder if they're making a calculated choice to save some votes within their communities to vote against this emergency. I don't know if they're in swing states or borderline states, knowing that knowing that the veto was coming. So in a way, they can sort of satisfy both sides because they're not. They know they can't override the veto, but
if they don't get more Republicans,
right? But they're going to satisfy a bunch of people who don't. And apparently, according to the polls that I've read, a vast majority of Americans don't think this is an emergency because basically there is no emergency.
The polls. All the differing polls from different whatever, it seems to indicate that folks already know it's a fake national emergency.
Right.
So
and unfortunately, and this is true of both parties, they tend to vote in blocks, and whether it's good or bad, they go with what the leadership asked them to do. In this case, a lot of them didn't. Well, not a lot, a handful of them didn't, which is by itself refreshing. But obviously not enough to override the veto that's coming down the pike.
I'm not sure. You're probably right in that. But no, I think there have been more Democrats who don't toe their party line all the time. Because I remember those blue dog Democrats during George Bush's years. They barely ever supported the Democratic caucus.
Right.
And there have been any number of defections from the Democratic Party line over the years because Democrats tend to be more mavericks than Republicans, and Republicans tend to toe their party line, especially under Mitch McConnell. So, especially under Barack Obama's two administrations, because I remember when Barack Obama was talking about trying to get an infrastructure program off the ground, the Republicans decided they were not going to sign off on any infrastructure bill that Obama was going to put forward. And everybody in the country knew an infrastructure bill would create jobs, stimulate the economy.
Right, but as you were I'm sure you were about to say this, but they didn't want it to happen with his name on the label.
That's correct.
They didn't want Obama's name to be on this grand infrastructure rehab, rebuild, renovation. Under his leadership, they were going to save it for
whatever,
but he
not under his name,
right? And you make a very good historic point about the Democrats, because the worst example, or the best example I can think of, is Joe Lieberman. who actually turned up at the Republican convention
yeah,
after not getting what he wanted out of the Democratic side. And that was rather an astonishing.
Correct me if I'm wrong. He originally was a Democrat, and then because he decided to be a maverick, he decided to become an independent. Is that the way it actually
I believe so.
transpired?
But as an independent or whatever flag he flew under, he showed up at the Republican convention that year, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously burning all sorts of bridges with ample amounts of kerosene.
And the Democrats tend to ride with outliers who sometimes vote with them and sometimes don't vote with them. Bernie Sanders really isn't a Democrat. He is an independent.
He is.
But he has caucused with the Democrats when it's to his advantage. And he's thrown bricks at them at times. But he's more Democratic leaning because the policies that the Democrats advocate are more in line to the policies that Bernie Sanders stands for.
Right.
And
every so often we do have a maverick. We don't get them often. We had John Anderson one year taking votes away from, mainly the Democrats. We had, who was the rich guy? I'll think of his name later.
Rand Paul's dad?
No.
He was a Republican. Ron Paul was a Republican.
No, I'm going further back. I'm all ears. That was his famous quote. I'll think of him. Very rich businessman who ran as a third-party candidate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, before...
Ross Perot.
Yeah. And well, Michael Bloomberg has changed his mind. He's not going to run.
Right.
Okay.
And
but there's another independent rich billionaire who is now deciding he might want to throw his hat in
the Starbucks CEO?
Yes.
Yeah.
Schultz.
Yeah.
Right.
And I worry about that because a lot of these CEOs are in situations where they're surrounded by yes people, so they think they're more popular than they are. These corporate heads of, they have lots of people always opening doors.
They think their money can help them solve problems.
Yes.
Just because they made a lot of money or their corporations made a lot of money and they were running the corporations at the time.
Right.
Speaking of lots of money in corporations and thinking you can run the world, makes for a perfect segue of the other story that has broken big the 2 days prior, and actually today while we're taping, and will still be around next week just because it has lots of money and it has lots of Hollywood in it, and that's the college entrance exam, college admissions scandal. Bob, bring our viewers up to speed on this college entrance craziness.
It was rather astonishing because you and I talk about how people with money never have to worry about people busting down their doors and waving handcuffs in their faces. And that's basically what happened over the last couple of days with people, a number of corporate leaders, a number of names that we know from TV were arrested for basically buying their kids' their way into schools like Yale, USC, Stanford, I think, was one of them. They didn't list
USC,
Columbia,
Georgetown,
which makes me proud.
A ton of schools.
Yes.
Big names.
And
some public, lot private. Georgetown, USC, Yale. But what caught the major headlines was two major Hollywood actresses. One's name is Loughlin.
Yes,
Lori Loughlin, and the lady who was on Desperate Housewives. Let me not pull wrong names out and
right. But while you're doing that, it was Loughlin's daughter who found out that her mother was being indicted, was under arrest. While she was on the yacht owned by the head of the Board of Trustees of USC. And so not only did she get into a school which she probably didn't earn her way into, but she's enjoying a day
the perks.
Yes, the perks with the head of the Board of Trustees, which is the board that runs the university.
Yes.
So it's just breathtaking, the amount of arrogance that's uncovered here.
Once again, you see the fact that people who are connected, people with money, People with money usually tend to be connected. And when you pay a $500,000 bribe to get your kid into college, the guy who was running this scheme says, there's the front door where people do it the real way. There's the back door where the people with money endow the school with a new building, and so their kid gets in, which is all everybody understand they're buying their kids in, but it's, quote, accepted. He says, I've created a side door. And his side door is, you pay me money, I pay a coach, because they would pay a coach to make believe this kid's going to be a recruit on one of their teams, soccer or crew or whatever. And I don't want to be laughing, because what happens is when you go down that road, some talented young kid who is a good soccer player, who may not have a ride to school because their folks can't afford it, who could get that scholarship, is not going to get that scholarship because it's been bought up by some rich person.
Exactly. And I'm sure you have the same experience as I do. I remember what it took for me to get into Columbia, which was a lot of work. I mean, just kicking my butt through Brooklyn Tech and then qualifying with whatever extracurricular activities they needed to see.
Bust your gut studying for the SATs, taking all these tests, practicing on these tests, doing what you can through your own gut hard work, because you ain't got anybody endowing any buildings. you don't have any side door money, so you either earn yourself an academic scholarship or you earn yourself an athletic scholarship. Or you get in and then figure out a way to pay this tuition. So
and you and I both know people who work 2 jobs or whatever to get through college, and so I mean,
so they're stacking the deck. They are basically greasing the skids for their kids.
And I'm happy with the reporting I've seen on it, because they did go after. They tried to get comments from everybody. In fact, I think somebody was covering. I guess they were scoping out one of the homes of one of the stars when you can hear the FBI in the background screaming, FBI, warrant. I don't know if it was a security video or whatever, but it's just breathtaking that people of this level who did such arrogant things to get their kids into college were caught.
Well,
and not through some backdoor indictment where they can come in peacefully, but no, they went out and got them.
Yeah, and I think it was the Boston headquarters of the U.S. Attorney's Office that did this operation. But there's an interesting headline that popped up on my Yahoo feed. It says, quote, this is from the Yahoo Lifestyle Business Report, pot-smoking son defends parents charged in admission scandal. Quote, everyone has a right to go to college, end quote. The rapper, who goes by the name Billa, was smoking a blunt outside of the home when he also admitted, but I didn't go to college. so there's some humor in the story anyway. But
I actually saw that headline and didn't bother reading the story because my instant reaction
it's just a headline that caught my eye. I thought I'd share that with you folks.
No, it makes a very good point.
Yes. Everybody has a right to go to college. Yeah, right. Any which way they can, right? Okay.
I mean, I have to take some points from other people's reporting. I mean, one person was saying, well, the way you get rid of the situation is to admit more people. Well, to admit more people, you have to actually have bigger classes and more buildings and a bigger budget. So it's not just add more people so that these folks can remain. It's actually ferreting out the people who are cheating.
How about that?
Which is what gets it done. And some of the reports were less than newsworthy. Somebody called it the U.S. District Attorney, which is just the wrong word. Just the wrong, flat out.
You mean the U.S. Attorney's Office, maybe?
Okay. So it just showed somebody who's not used to reporting.
Right. Well, you know, the interesting thing is the U.S. Attorney's offices have been in the news nonstop these days because the guy in the White House has got a gazillion investigations going on, primarily in the Southern District of New York. But the D.C. federal people are about to come down on his associate, Roger Stone. If it's not today, Thursday, it's tomorrow, Friday. I think Stone has a new meeting with the judge about whether or not he has violated her gag order.
That's okay.
Is that today or
no? I didn't
tomorrow?
know the schedule. It might be. I know it was this week.
And of course, Manafort got sentenced in 2 different jurisdictions and ended up with a total of 7.5 years to be served. But the interesting thing is the New York District Attorney, Cyrus Vance, out of Manhattan.
Okay.
Immediately a second sentence was imposed by Judge Jackson in D.C. Once that shoe dropped, Cyrus Vance dropped his boot, saying 16 crimes dealing with possible mortgage fraud in the state of New York, in the District of Manhattan somewhere.
In Manhattan Borough,
yes.
to be specific.
So to be specific, because the Cyrus Vance is a Manhattan jurisdiction.
Right, New York County.
Yes, New York County is the official name.
Yes.
And the bottom line is, once you're in the New York County, that means you're in the state of New York, and so the president has no pardon power. So if Manafort escapes a double jeopardy, because I'm sure his lawyers are going to raise the specter of, oh, we can't be tried on this court. We were tried in the federal court. And all the legal critics that I've listened to over the last couple of days were saying there's a possibility the way they will word the charges on that mortgage fraud as opposed to bank fraud, that it's going to be looked at as a totally separate crime. And if that's the case, he's going to be tried. But one other lawyer, no, I heard 2 lawyers, both came up with this particular statement. You understand that since Manafort has already pled guilty to these charges in a federal court, that even if these charges apply to the state, city mortgage situation, there's no way in the world he's got a defense to say, oh, I'm not guilty, because he's already pled guilty. So it's like a catch-22. As they used to say, stay tuned. We'll bring you some more on how that development develops.
Right, and if he's looking for a pardon from Cuomo, that's not happening. There's no need to stay awake waiting for that.
And let me whisper something in our viewers' ears. Never mind Cyrus Vance, because forget Manafort. State Attorney General, State of New York Attorney General Letitia James has picked up the baton from her predecessor and is looking into all those various Trump organization properties and stuff that the previous acting Attorney General had started against the Trump people. And so that has not gone away just because it's a new Attorney General. So there are more investigations going on for the Orange Julius in the White House, folks.
And she's just getting up to speed. This is her very first term following, like you said, acting Attorney General filling in for the Attorney General who resigned and going back to Eliot Spitzer.
And actually she wasn't acting, she was just the interim. She was the actual Attorney General. But the new one has picked up the baton. So those are interesting developments that we will keep an eye on for you. But we want to backtrack because there were a couple of stories that are significant and serious in the news, one of which I will start with, because once we get on the other one, it's going to take the rest of the show. And
we have about 9 minutes, but go ahead.
We've been staying on top of the reaction to the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, and the fact that the current crown prince of Saudi Arabia is neck deep, hip deep, brain deep, the guy who actually said kill that man, and our CIA and a bunch of other people, including the Turks, have said this is the guy responsible for Khashoggi's death.
Our intelligence has concluded.
It's pretty much say this is the guy, but our government, whether it's Donald Trump or our Middle East envoy, Jared Kushner, all seem to be still cozy and lovey-dovey with this crown prince. But one of his missions when he toured the U.S. between 2016 and 2018 to drum up business and make, let people know what a great reformer he was to push the Saudi investment fund. Because they have a giant investment fund because they're sitting on all these dollars. He's trying to diversify the Saudi economy, so he decided, let's go do venture capitalist stuff. So he's busy pawning money off left and right, and a lot of people are taking this money. But once this murder hit, a whole bunch of people said, well, I don't want to talk to you right now. I think the guy who was running Virgin Air said, let me step back from that. There was a guy that ran a talent agency, a guy by the name of Ariel Emmanuel, and he's the chief executive of a talent agency called Endeavor. And Endeavor got $400 million from the Saudis.
Okay.
That's a big investment to help your company. And when it hit, even before they came down definitively to say that this guy was behind it all, he said, you know what, I don't think I want to be involved with these folks. So the Endeavor guy talked to his other investors and told them, I don't like this. I think I want to pull back. Can you guys help me do X, Y, and Z? And the other investors said, hey, we like your conscience. If that's the way you want to go. They came up with $400 million more.
Okay.
He gave the Saudis back the $400
That's
million.
impressive.
That's
That's astounding.
Endeavor is the name of the talent agency. The guy
Okay.
who ran it, Ariel Emmanuel. And I want to give a shout out to that guy because how many people say $400 million, good for my company, but my conscience says I can't take that money. And
Right.
he lived up to his belief.
So he had the money already?
It was already
invested. It wasn't like he was
it
on
wasn't, you know, it was there.
Okay.
The deal had been done.
Okay.
And
he
he
basically
called them up and says, I want to give you back your money.
That's impressive.
They didn't say we won't take it back, but
Yeah.
they said,
Yeah,
make sure you get it all.
Right. Right.
So he did. So
And I remember back when I was a student, we were trying to get Columbia University to divest from companies that invested in South African companies.
that's exactly right.
And so we were trying to, and the trustees in the beginning said, just shut up, you noisy students, just go back, go to class and don't bother us. And it wasn't up to the level of the 1968 protests, but there were protests on campus. Mm-hmm. There's a picture in the Columbia Spectator of me hanging out of a window and holding a divest banner. But it took a while to get the brains of the trustees around to doing it, and they did it. But it took a lot of kicking and screaming.
I'll tell you what actually helped you guys. It's because all your kicking and screaming put that apartheid policy and that craziness on the front burner.
Yeah.
You guys in the streets, Randall Robinson, in the boardrooms and on mainstream media talking about this is ridiculous, this is crazy. And so when the mainstream media came around to actually saying, these people are killing people in the streets. These people have people locked up in cages and calling them homelands and doing all kinds of stupid nonsense.
Right, the IDs and everything. Yeah.
That coverage actually, just like the civil rights coverage when they saw the dogs and the hoses and all that stuff, made the civil rights movement front and center.
Right.
The mainstream media coverage in South Africa made apartheid front and center. You guys on the campus made it front and center. Exactly what we said a couple shows back. If the mainstream media started covering the Palestinian-Israeli conflict the way we covered the civil rights movement, the way we covered the South Africa apartheid movement, then guess what? All this crazy nonsense that this freshman congresswoman from Minnesota, Ilhan Omar. Let me make sure I'm not putting her in the wrong state.
Okay, but we know who you mean.
Yes, Ilhan Omar. Basically, she pretty much said that the Israeli lobby is actually wagging this dog. Okay?
Yeah,
that's the tail that's wagging. And Israel is the tail that's wagging the U.S. dog.
Right.
And the bottom line is she's been vilified as being an anti-Semite, etc.
Right.
And it's very interesting because there's a lot of stuff going on, but the mainstream media isn't doing much on it. But some friends of mine, former colleagues at ABC, posted a thing online called Cold Type. It's a new online magazine.
I'll have to subscribe to
that. The headline is just amazing, but the story that caught my eye, because guess what? It was posted on the Danny Schechter memorial page. Remember I told you Danny Schechter came on, he came on Media Watch to talk about the same issue with us.
Right.
You don't have to be anti-Semite because you criticize Israeli policy.
Right.
I'm going to read the opening of this story. This is a Chris Hedges story, by the way.
And we have about 3 minutes.
Chris Hedges' headline is Israel Stranglehold on American Politics. That's the headline.
Right.
Is Israel Stranglehold on American Politics. The Israel lobby's buying off of nearly every senior politician in the United States, facilitated by our system of legalized bribery, is not an anti-Semitic trope. It's a fact. That's the
Okay.
trope they were accusing Ilhan Omar of supposedly using.
Okay.
The lobby's campaign of vicious character assassination, smearing, and blacklisting against those who defend Palestinian rights, including the Jewish historian Norman Finkelstein and university students, many of them Jewish, in organizations such as Students for Justice in Palestine, is not an anti-Semitic trope. It's a fact. That's the same vilification they're using against Ilhan.
Sure.
24 state governments' passage of Israel lobby-backed legislation requiring their workers and contractors under threat of dismissal to sign a pro-Israel oath and promise not to support the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement is not an anti-Semitic trope. It is a fact.
Okay.
Now, that's how this article starts.
Okay.
But this anti-boycott diversification pledge, remember the story he did about the young lady in Texas who got fired from her job teaching in some school because she was told she had to sign this pledge about the anti. She said, I'm not going to do that.
We had a similar discussion, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well,
I've had
these
things pushed in front of me which I didn't sign. But go ahead.
These are the, quote, anti-Semitic tropes that they're labeling this freshman Congresswoman Ilhan Omar with. And there was another story that, I don't know if I can find it, if I can get my Facebook thing. No, it's not coming up now.
It's not going to come up.
But it was a Counterpunch article, and it was written by a writer by the name of Jeff Cohen. And basically what he was saying is what she has been accused of is what every conscientious Jew who believes in freedom of speech, who believes in the fact that that criticizing Israel is not off limits, and you should be able to criticize Israel without being accused of being an anti-Semite.
Absolutely. There's lots of things I would definitely support Israel on, a lot of issues, a lot of international issues, but this rubber stamping is where I draw the line. We have 45 seconds, and Netanyahu's going to have his own issues. That's a whole different story. But yeah, you can criticize without being an anti-Semite, just the same way you can criticize something out of Black America without being a racist.
Yeah.
It's fine. Criticism is okay.
Part of Cohen's comment was they're not upset about what she said, primarily it's about who said it and what she looks like. That was Cohen's take.
20 seconds.
I agree with him. Listen, in 20 seconds, all I can say, folks, is this has been Media Watch. I'm Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on Twitter and YouTube at Media Watch EVT.
And we'll catch you the next time, folks.